Beneath the scandal swirling around the Cleveland Browns lies a deeper, more uncomfortable allegation. Racial bias may have played a role in the sabotage of quarterback Shedeur Sanders. The former fifth-round pick has accused head coach Kevin Stefanski and the Browns' coaching staff of systematically undermining him from the moment he joined the team. Now, sources close to Sanders are pointing to more than just football politics. They're raising serious concerns about how race may have influenced his treatment. Sanders supporters allege that he was not only benched in favor of Dillon Gabriel.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
A white quarterback reportedly favored by the coaching staff, but also set up to fail. Plays were designed to target his weaknesses. Practice reps were limited. Even internal metrics were allegedly manipulated to make him appear underprepared and underperforming. And yet, whenever Sanders did get the chance to take the field, fan reactions told a different story. He moved the offense. He energized the crowd. But inside the building, those moments were downplayed, erased, or used as further justification to bury him deeper on the depth chart. Kevin Stefanski, who reportedly pushed back hard on drafting Sanders in the first place, now finds himself accused of not just poor judgment, but of overseeing a culture where bias influenced opportunity. These aren't subtle accusations. They've gained traction online and within the sports commentary world, sparking a wave of criticism about the NFL's still unresolved legacy of evaluating black quarterbacks under a harsher lens. While the Browns organization hasn't addressed the racial angle publicly, it's clear the team is in crisis mode. Owner Jimmy Haslam's sudden meeting with Sanders suggests something shifted internally. Whether it's out of guilt, PR strategy, or genuine concern, that move alone hints at fractures within the leadership. Players have reportedly begun backing Sanders behind closed doors, echoing concerns about how he was treated compared to Gabriel. And with the NFLPA monitoring the situation, the issue is no longer contained to Cleveland. It's becoming part of a larger conversation about power, perception, and the unwritten rules that still dictate which quarterbacks get a real shot. The league now faces a pivotal moment. Investigate and risk uncovering an ugly truth, or ignore it and risk validating the very biased critics have long accused the NFL of enabling. Sanders may not have been a top draft pick, but his story is now one of the most important in football. Because if the franchise really did sabotage a promising young black quarterback on purpose, for reasons that go deeper than X's and O's, then this scandal isn't just about one team. It's about the soul of the league. This isn't just a quarterback controversy. It's a full-scale indictment of the Cleveland Browns' internal structure. Shedeur Sanders, a fifth-round pick who came into the league with talent, poise, and pedigree, has publicly called out the franchise that drafted him, and he's not mincing words. Sanders is accusing head coach Kevin Stefanski and the Browns' coaching staff of deliberate, orchestrated, and systemic sabotage. Not miscommunication. Not growing pains. Sabotage. According to Sanders, his attempt to climb the quarterback depth chart were blocked at every level. Not by performance, not by merit, but by a coaching staff determined to protect their own narrative. The story Sanders is telling isn't just about being overlooked. It's about being targeted. And the details are damning. Practice reps were manipulated. Play calls were intentionally designed to exploit his inexperience. Internal statistics were reportedly altered to make his performance appear worse than it actually was. All of it, Sanders alleges, was motivated by a predetermined decision to anoint Dillon Gabriel as QB1, regardless of who actually earned the role. This wasn't football. It was sabotage with a clipboard. The root of it? Sanders wasn't their pick. He was drafted over the objections of the coaching staff. And from that moment on, it appears they were determined to prove themselves right. Not on the field, but in the shadows. Sanders wasn't just being developed slowly. He was being deliberately suppressed to preserve the pride of the people in charge. And when Sanders brought these claims forward, he didn't just vent to the media or post a cryptic Instagram story. He compiled documented evidence, reps logs, internal communications, possibly even play design sheets, and delivered them straight to Browns owner Jimmy Haslam. Haslam's reaction? Surprising support. That detail alone sent shockwaves through the league. Haslam siding with Sanders, at least provisionally, signals that something very real is happening inside that building. This isn't a disgruntled player throwing around baseless accusations. This is a quarterback with receipts. And now, the owner appears to be listening. So where does this leave the Browns? In chaos. Because when a quarterback calls out the coaching staff for manipulation and then brings evidence, everything grinds to a halt. The locker room? Shaken. Reports have already surfaced that several Browns players have privately backed Sanders' claims. The idea that reps were being controlled, that game plans were designed to highlight failure, that Sanders was set up to fail? It's not just believable. It's now being corroborated. Fan trust? Evaporating. Boycotts are trending. Protests are forming. Let Shadur play. Signs are popping up at practice. The more the team stays silent, the louder the outrage gets. And Dillon Gabriel? He's caught in the middle. There's no indication he orchestrated any of this, but he's undeniably the beneficiary. While the team reportedly rigged the system against Sanders, Gabriel was handed the starter role with none of the resistance, none of the obstacles, none of the sabotage. And now the public knows. Gabriel hasn't commented. And maybe he thinks staying silent is a smart move. But in a scandal like this, silence is a statement. Whether he likes it or not, his legacy, before it even starts, is being tied to a system that propped him up while it buried someone else. Then there's Kevin Stefanski. The coach who once looked like a stabilizing force of franchise is now at the center of one of the ugliest player-coach scandals in recent NFL history. The accusations are specific, detailed, and widespread. If even some of them are true, Stefanski's future in the league is on thin ice. Because this isn't about bad play calling. This is about abuse of power. It's one thing to mismanage a quarterback room. It's another to manipulate an entire developmental process to maintain control. If Sanders' allegations are substantiated, we're talking about a coach and potentially an entire staff intentionally obstructing a player's progress for personal and political reasons. That crosses a line. And it's not just a Browns problem anymore. This puts the entire league on the hot seat. The NFL markets itself as a league of opportunity. Earn your spot, win the job, play the best. But this scandal lays bare how quickly that principle gets thrown out when egos, politics, and control come into play. And now the league has a choice. Investigate and preserve the integrity of its product, or look the other way and risk setting a dangerous precedent. Because the details matter here. This isn't just a locker room spat. This is documented manipulation, intentional sabotage. A player saying, they tried to ruin my career before it even started. And what's worse, they almost got away with it, until Sanders spoke up. The potential legal consequences are already being analyzed. If Sanders' claims hold up, he could have grounds for grievances through the NFLPA, citing a breach of implied contractual obligations and possibly discrimination. If internal data was indeed altered, that's fraud. If plays were deliberately called to engineer failure, that's career manipulation. And if racial bias played even a whisper of role in these decisions, the fallout will be even more severe. The NFL is still grappling with its long history of bias against black quarterbacks. The idea that a young, talented black QB was blocked, undermined, and sabotaged, again, will spark national conversation, and rightfully so. This is not a one-week scandal. It's not going to fade from the timeline by Sunday kickoff. The Browns' internal dysfunction is now a league-wide reckoning. Ownership is already under pressure to act. Stefanski's position is now toxic. Gabriel's legitimacy is in question. The fan base is fractured. And every young player across the league is watching closely, wondering if what happened to Shadur could happen to them. Because the truth is, the scandal didn't create mistrust. It exposed it. For years, players have whispered about favoritism, manipulated reps, and coaches protecting their guys. Now, for the first time, there's evidence. There's a name. And there's a quarterback willing to stand up, take the heat, and say, this isn't okay. So what happens next? The NFL must launch a transparent, independent investigation, not a PR-friendly internal review. A real, external probe into the allegations. Who knew what? When did they know it? Who approved the game plans? Who altered the reports? And what exactly happened after Sanders was drafted against the staff's wishes? Anything less than that is a cover-up. Because this isn't just about one player's reps. This is about the culture of the league, the belief that hard work pays off, that talent matters more than politics, that football is, above all else, fair. If those principles aren't protected, what's left? Sanders is demanding an investigation. The fans are demanding answers. And right now, the NFL is dangerously close to confirming every worst fear players have about how this league really works. The clock is ticking. Drop your take in the comments. Does Shedeur Sanders deserve immediate reinstatement and a public apology? Should Stefanski be suspended while the investigation plays out? Should the league hold an open hearing? And more importantly, what needs to change so this never happens again? If you care about truth, transparency, and holding power accountable, hit that subscribe button. We'll keep bringing the stories the league wants buried, and the ones that matter to fans, players, and the future of the game, because this isn't just another messy offseason headline. This is a story that could finally break the system open. This isn't just a scandal anymore. It's a war for legitimacy. The Cleveland Browns have been many things over the years. Chaotic, unlucky, at times even laughable. But this is something darker, something deeper, something that no amount of draft picks, locker room speeches, or damage control pressers can fix. We're talking about a team accused of sabotaging its own quarterback. Not because he couldn't play, not because he wasn't ready, but because he wasn't wanted. Shedeur Sanders was drafted in the 5th round. Yes, late, but he wasn't drafted by accident. There was intent. There was vision. Ownership saw potential. The front office saw upside. The problem? The coaching staff didn't see control. And when they didn't get their way, they didn't just disagree. They allegedly conspired. According to Sanders, once he landed in Cleveland, the coaching staff did everything they could to keep him buried. Reps were manipulated. Depth charts were rigged. And worst of all, game plans were tailored to make him look worse. Read that again. We're not talking about passive mismanagement or rookie growing pains. We're talking about deliberate career sabotage. Let's not pretend that's normal. That's not coaching decisions. That's not he's not ready yet. That's not development. That's corruption. Shedeur had the receipts. Internal data, footage, performance charts, evidence that showed the discrepancy between what he was doing in practice and what was being reported to the media, the front office, and ownership. And when he brought that directly to Jimmy Haslam, it blew the doors off everything. Haslam didn't dismiss it. He didn't deflect. He reportedly supported Sanders. And that right there, that moment, changed the entire temperature inside the Browns facility. Because once the owner starts siding with the rookie over the coaching staff, the message is clear. This is not business as usual. It's a total internal breakdown. Coach versus owner. Player versus staff. Team versus truth. And while Kevin Stefanski has tried to act like it's all part of some vague process, the silence from the top down says it all. No one's denying the allegations. No one's refuting the details. No one's stepping in front of Mike and saying, this is false, because they can't. And when players start backing up the claims privately, when guys in that locker room are quietly confirming what Sanders is saying, that's not just smoke. That's fire. Let's talk about how bad this is for team morale. The quarterback position is supposed to be the heartbeat of any franchise, but in Cleveland right now, it's become a symbol of everything that's wrong. Dillon Gabriel, reportedly the chosen one for Stefanski and his staff, has been thrust into a situation he probably never wanted. Whether he knew about the sabotage or not, he's now the face of a position battle that wasn't decided by competition, but by conspiracy. And fans know it. Gabriel may be talented. He may even be a good leader. But that doesn't matter right now. Because when you're elevated through dirty tactics, when another player was allegedly torn down so you could be built up, that sticks. That becomes your narrative. And Gabriel? He hasn't said a word. No comment. No defense of his teammate. No clarification. Just silence. And while that silence might be strategic, it also makes him complicit in the eyes of a lot of fans. Because when someone benefits from a broken system and says nothing, people notice. So now we have a locker room divided, a fan base outraged, a coach under fire, a quarterback exposed. And a young rookie, Shedeur Sanders, who's gone from fifth-round backup to whistleblower, and maybe even, eventually, a catalyst for league-wide change. Because this story is bigger than Cleveland. The question every player in the league is asking right now is this: if it happened to him, could it happen to me? And the answer? Yes. This scandal has cracked open something the NFL's always tried to keep hidden. The reality that merit doesn't always win. That politics, power, and ego still trump performance. That some coaches would rather manipulate outcomes than admit they were wrong about a player. And that should terrify everyone. Because this isn't just about Shedeur's development. This is about the NFL's entire identity. A league that claims to reward hard work, effort, and excellence. How does it square with the possibility that players are being sabotaged from within? If the NFL wants to save face, there's only one option now: full transparency. No soft statements. No closed-door reviews. The league must open a full, independent investigation into the Browns' handling of Shedeur Sanders. Not to protect PR, but to protect the future of player trust. And don't forget, this isn't just a football issue. It's a legal one. Multiple experts have already said that if Sanders' evidence is legitimate, and if it proves a pattern of intentional undermining, he could have grounds to sue, breach of good faith, violation of implied contracts, emotional distress, and yes, possibly even racial bias. Because if a black quarterback was sabotaged by a coaching staff that resented his presence and sought to erase him before he ever got a chance, that's not just sabotage. That's systemic. And the NFL has a responsibility to confront that. If they fail to act, they're not just protecting Stefanski and the Browns. They're sending a message to every player in the league that integrity is optional and fairness is a fantasy. That message will break the league. So what's next? The Browns need to suspend Stefanski immediately, pending the results of a transparent investigation. They need to meet with the NFLPA. They need to hold an open forum for players. And most importantly, they need to clear the path for Shedeur Sanders to compete. Truly compete. For the role he was brought in to fight for. No more buried reps. No more manipulated data. No more politics. Just football. And for the league, it's time to grow a spine. This scandal is now national. It's being talked about across shows, online platforms, and locker rooms. It won't go away with a press release. It won't fade with a tweet. It won't blow over by week 1. It'll only grow louder, especially if the league pretends it's not happening. Shedeur Sanders did something few players, rookies especially, have the nerve to do. He called out the machine. He challenged the hierarchy. He stood up and said, "This isn't right," and he backed it up with evidence. He didn't do it for attention. He did it for truth. And that's what makes him dangerous. Because if more players follow his lead, if more rookies start speaking out, if more veterans pull receipts, if more teams start questioning the people in charge, the league won't be able to hide behind tradition and slogans anymore. This could be the beginning of real change. But only if the NFL has the guts to act. The Browns aren't just facing a scandal. They're staring down an identity crisis. This is the same franchise that has begged fans for patience year after year. The same organization that promised they were building something, while cycling through coaches, quarterbacks, and front office visions like a bad sitcom reboot. But this time, it's not about losing records or draft busts. It's about something much more corrosive: corruption from within. Shedeur Sanders didn't just say he was overlooked. He said he was sabotaged. And that word, sabotage, is like a bomb in professional sports. It strips away every excuse, every rookie learning curve cliche. Because if true, it means the Browns weren't just failing to develop talent. They were deliberately destroying it. Think about what that means for the locker room. Players work their entire lives to get to this level. They train, they sacrifice, they put their bodies on the line, believing that when they get to the NFL, everything will be decided on performance. The best man plays. The hardest worker rises. But when a teammate like Sanders says he was set up to fail, it rattles that entire belief system. Suddenly, no one can trust that the field is fair. And trust? That's the only currency a locker room has. So now you've got Browns players privately confirming what Sanders claims. They saw reps manipulated. They saw stats not adding up. They saw game plans that made no sense when Sanders was in. If veterans are whispering, if rookies are frustrated, if trust in the coaching staff is gone, that's not just a crack in the foundation. That's the whole building shaking. Then you have the fans. Browns fans aren't casual observers. This is one of the most die-hard fan bases in the NFL. They've endured decades of heartbreak. They can forgive losing. They can forgive bad draft picks. What they cannot forgive is corruption. They can't forgive watching a young quarterback, the guy ownership wanted, the guy fans believed in, being benched not because of talent, but because of politics. That's why protests are happening. That's why boycotts are being organized. That's why hashtags are trending every Sunday. Fans have drawn their line in the sand. They're saying, if you can't even give us honesty, what's left? And this is where the NFL steps in, or doesn't. The league loves to talk about protecting the shield. They want the brand, the image, the idea of integrity. But protecting the shield means nothing if you let a coach get away with sabotaging a rookie quarterback. It means nothing if you sit back while trust in competition evaporates. And it means nothing if you ignore racial bias when it's staring you in the face. Because yes, that part matters too. The allegations against Stefanski and his staff can't be divorced from the racial context of the NFL. Sanders is a black quarterback. And historically, black quarterbacks have faced more skepticism, more resistance, and more he's not ready narratives than their white counterparts. If Sanders was drafted against the staff's wishes, and then they systematically undermined him, how do you not see the bias baked into that? Even if unintentional, the optics are damning. That's why this scandal isn't going away. It's too layered. It's not just about football. It's about fairness. It's about race. It's about power struggles between ownership and staff. It's about the very core of what the NFL pretends to stand for. And yet, the league is quiet. Roger Goodell hasn't issued a statement. The Browns haven't announced an internal review. No suspension, no acknowledgement, no accountability. Just radio silence. And every day they wait, the outrage grows. The irony is brutal. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask to be a symbol. He just wanted to play quarterback. But by standing up, by demanding an investigation, by putting receipts in the owner's hand, he's become the face of a bigger fight. He's exposing the NFL's dirty secret. That talent doesn't always win. That politics still run the game. And that if you're not their guy, you can be erased before you ever get a chance. And here's the kicker. The Browns could have avoided all of this. Stefanski could have let the competition play out. Gabriel could have earned QB1 without controversy. Sanders could have developed naturally, learning behind a starter while building trust with the team. But they didn't want competition. They wanted control. And now, they've lost both. The Browns' future is in jeopardy. Stefanski's career is in jeopardy. The league's credibility is in jeopardy. And Shedeur Sanders, the rookie who was supposed to wait quietly for his turn, has become the one forcing everyone to face the truth. So let's end on this. The NFL has a choice. They can investigate, hold people accountable, and restore faith in the system. Or they can protect the status quo, bury the scandal, and watch as fans, players, and sponsors lose trust in the idea that football is fair. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the Browns fire Stefanski now? Should the NFL force an independent investigation? And do you think Shedeur Sanders has already changed the game for how rookies stand up for themselves? And don't forget to subscribe, because scandals like this don't disappear. They grow. And we'll be here every step of the way, pulling back the curtain. Because this isn't just a Browns problem. It's an NFL problem. And now, it's everyone's problem.